Meet Bob. Bob is a 17-year-old high school senior. He has what many would consider a good life. He comes from a loving family. He has many friends. And he is even the star quarterback of his school football team. But lately, Bob has been faced with many problems. Bob recently broke up with his girlfriend, and his grades are very poor this semester. Bob's parents are worried that their son will not be accepted into the college he has chosen, and they have been pushing him to raise his grades. But Bob's biggest problem, perhaps, is that he doesn't know how to cope with these stressors. But what is a stressor? A stressor is anything that causes a person to experience stress, which is a form of anxiety. When Bob gets stressed out over something, he gets very angry. He yells at people. He throws things. And he storms around in rage. He doesn't realize that a problem can never be resolved this way. Bob needs to learn, somehow, how to deal with stress without harming himself or anyone else. Bob woke up on a rainy Tuesday morning and got ready for school. Bob's friend Ed had a car and would usually give him a ride to school. When Bob telephoned Ed, he found out that Ed's car had broken down and he would have to walk in the rain to school. Well, that's just swell. Bob arrived at school half an hour later, sopping wet, tired, and angry. In his first class, he snapped at the teacher and had to stand in the back of the class. His classmates found this very funny. The whole class was then assigned a paper due the next day. Bob didn't know what to do. He had a big football game against Central High this evening, and there was no chance he could get the paper finished. Bob was starting to feel a lot of stress. At break time, Bob went to the men's room to meet with the school drug pusher. Bob had been using marijuana to cope with his problems for almost 2 months. What he didn't know was that marijuana is a dangerous illicit narcotic which can render the user temporarily insane. Other effects of marijuana or reefers in jive talk are paranoia, abstract behaviors, an increased appreciation of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon.
All that you touch and all that you see, all that you taste, all you feel.
Bob purchased $10 worth of marijuana from the pusher and then went to the cafeteria to sit down. Bob's friend John saw him from across the room and came to say hello. He noticed once he got closer that Bob wasn't looking quite right today. "Gee, Bob," he said, "you don't look too swell today. You look fairly stressed out." "Yeah," said Bob. "What does that mean?" "That means you have a lot of problems right now that you don't know how to cope with," replied John. "You're right," said Bob. Bob went on to tell John about his problems, how he broke up with his girlfriend, about his poor grades, and how hard his parents are pushing him to go to college. Bob didn't realize that what he was doing was one of the best ways to deal with stress, talking to someone about your problems. It was then that John began to smell the distinct odor of marijuana and noticed what Bob was holding in his hand. "Gee, Bob," he said, "you have not been smoking reefers, have you?" Bob admitted to his addiction to marijuana. "That's no way to deal with stress," said John. He told Bob what the best thing is to do if you're starting to feel stress. Take 10 deep breaths. This will calm you down and keep you from making irrational decisions. He also told Bob to work hard but make sure to take time to have fun with your friends. Keeping a good balance of work and play is a sure way to keep stress at bay. And of course, it always helps to talk about your problems with a friend. Bob agreed to kick his marijuana habit and threw it in the trash can. Bob was in a better mood for the rest of the day. Bob worked in the library after school and finished his English paper, just in time to lead his team to a 21-7 victory over Central High. The next day, Bob was assigned a difficult mathematics package for homework. He didn't listen in class and couldn't understand any of it. But when he started to become stressed, he remembered what his good friend John told him the day before, that taking 10 deep breaths was the best way to deal with stress. Bob tried it, and it really did work. He stayed calm, and instead of getting angry, decided to stop for the day and consult his mathematics teacher the next morning before class. On the weekend, Bob remembered to focus on his studies and other responsibilities, but leave time for fun. Bob worked at Mr. Parsons' grocery in the morning, studied for his history test in the afternoon, and hung out with his pals in the evening. Bob knows now that time management is a good way to keep stress from happening in the first place. Yes, now that our friend Bob knows how to deal with stress, he is a much happier, healthier young man. And if Bob can learn how to deal with stress, so can you.